Welcome to the Woodpreneur podcast, the best podcast for the business and marketing side of the sawmill, lumber, and wood industry. What's a woodpreneur? If you have a business where you make money as a woodworker, sawmill owner, selling slabs, or a content creator, then you're a woodpreneur. My name's Steve Larosiliere, and I started Woodpreneur Life, Acres of Timber, and the Woodpreneur podcast just for makers, wood entrepreneurs, and small business owners just like you. We're on a mission to empower thousands of wood businesses to grow sustainably and put out great products. Each week, I interview makers, sawyers, content creators, and 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs that know the wood industry inside and out. With topics covering everything from the urban lumber movement, sustainable sourcing and design, we'll discuss the ins and outs of how to grow, monetize, and fully immerse yourself in the woodpreneur lifestyle. If you're a hobbyist, a full-time wood business owner, part-time entrepreneur who wants to become a content creator, or quit your day job to pursue your dreams, the Woodpreneur podcast is just for you. Thanks so much for listening. Now enjoy this episode. Hey, welcome to a brand new episode of the Woodpreneur podcast. This is your host, Steve Larosiliere. Today's guest is Derick Wyman from Cali Hardwoods. How you doing, Derick?
Good. How about you, Steve?
Good, thank you. Hey, why don't you tell us about Cali Hardwoods? How'd you get started?
Well, I kind of grew up with it. My family, I'm third generation as a sawyer in the lumber mill industry. My grandfather was a logger, and my dad grew up falling timber, and then they got into the milling side of things and opened up their own company. That was probably at least 40 years ago. And then, so I just, as a small child, there's pictures of me on logs and stacking gun stocks and, sweeping the shop floor at 5 years old, even younger than that, just with the family, taking family pics in front of logging equipment and milling equipment. So, yeah, it just always seemed natural, seemed normal to me. And of course, like when you grow up, when you're in high school, it doesn't seem that, like, you're just so used to it that you don't realize it's cool, or it's just like what your family does. But then when I got into college, I really appreciated it more, and I'd go back and work in the sawmill in the summer times. And then I got more involved on the business side of things. So it's kind of just evolved from there. At one time we were making furniture. We don't do that anymore. We've done, anything from like selling wholesale logs to gun stocks to wholesale burls for like veneer mills. We've been in it 40 plus years. So we've had a lot of experience and do's and don'ts and growth. But yeah, at the moment we just specialize in slabs, dimensional lumber, turning blanks, instrument billets, and everything we do is all domestically, locally sourced, mostly out of the Northern California region. We do network with some other sawmills in Southern California and Southern Oregon to source material that we don't get in our area, but everything's sustainably sourced. It's all, there's all a supply and chain. We see the material before it comes down. We specialize in a lot of walnut. So the English walnut comes out of orchard removal, same with the burls. But then we also get a lot of wild Claro walnut too. But a lot of that stuff comes down because of like city development projects, private property, farmers needing to take trees out to expand their ag. But yeah, we just try to repurpose and salvage as much material as we can.
Dude, you get access to some pretty amazing stuff.
Thanks. Yeah, no, where we're at in California, you can pretty much grow anything. So outside of how unique walnut, and the native species that are very diverse, there's species that grow here that are from all over the world that people grow in their front yards or as city trees
No, I'm looking at your Instagram and just like it must be so much fun to open up a log.
Dude, it's like a hidden gem, like you don't really know what's in there, and then you crack it open and you're like, oh wow, like it's always, even as long as I've been doing it and like how much nice wood we've seen, it's always still such a treat when you have just like a curly piece of walnut or
lots of swirls and waves, and it's pretty cool. So this current iteration of Cali Hardwoods, that is the one that's 40 years old?
Uh, it's so Wyman Enterprises was like my family's like original business. We don't really do much through it. We're thinking about closing it up. We you know we mostly did wholesale through it. Cali Hardwoods I developed in 2015. It started off as like a furniture company, just selling like slab tables and stuff. And I was finishing up college in San Diego, and my dad would send me down just slab tables that they would slap some finish on, some metal legs on, and sell it out of. I opened up a studio, like a showroom type art gallery type studio, and we're selling those, and it was going okay, but a lot of people wanted like, oh, this is cool, but can you make me this? Like, this is cool, but like I want this longer. Or so we just ended up opening up a wood shop, and then we were doing just custom furniture. We got into doing a lot of contract furniture in the commercial sector. San Diego has a lot of like tech, biotech, and that was pre-COVID, so that was a pretty hot industry. And we were doing pretty well in a lot of big orders, but it's such a it's a hard in like, even though like it looks like big dollar amounts, it's just the profit margins were so small, and like it takes so much time,
It
and
was
there's so much
time. It was
screw ups.
time, right? Yeah.
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 And then on top of the time, it's just like you need more time. And then the commercial industry, they needed it yesterday. And it's
Hmm.
like they might have a budget for a $20,000 conference table, and like, that sounds at that time sounded like a lot of money, but you're like, well, those big walnut slabs, if we use them for this, and if
Four
like we
grand.
weren't, yeah, well, some of them were like 10 grand,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
if we were to go buy it from, competitors of ours, like if we had to replace the slab, it'd probably be like 10 grand, really, full retail.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so yeah, and then like, like the base would be like 4 grand, and then just like the logistics, and always when you try to do a project that really, for custom furniture, you're like, this project realistically should be about 6 months, depending on even like selecting your slab. Give yourself about a year, just because giant slabs like that are so tough to get dried all the way.
yeah,
And just making sure the quality control is good, and like making sure you're not rushing it. It's like in commercial industry, it just didn't lend itself to that. They needed it done in like 3 weeks, and you're just like,
yeah,
you just get burnt out on it. So, I
yeah,
mean, luckily it all worked out. We shut that down in 2019. So it was right before COVID, and we got out of like, because our rent was pretty high in San Diego.
yeah,
But then, yeah, we just kind of, we always kept like the wholesale side of things going. And then, when I moved back up, we still were selling logs and still selling slabs like wholesale to suppliers back east.
yeah,
But then eventually it was like, why don't we just sell wood? That's what we know best. And then I'm like, let's do it in a retail capacity. Because where our
yeah,
sawmill's at in Orland's kind of a rural area, but you
yeah,
got big markets pretty close. Like the Bay Area is only about 3 hours away. Depending on what part of the Bay Area, it's only about 3 hours away. Sacramento is only
yeah,
about 2 hours away. LA is only probably about 10 and a half. Yeah, no, LA is like 8 hours away.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's really and so that it's an interesting space to be in when you realize like, all right, I have when you're selling material versus building a product, the friction rate is a lot sort of lessened, right? Because when you have, I always say that whenever you're trying to sell something custom, you're like, what color, what dimension, what this, what that, and then like the feelings that people get when it comes to custom, and if it's like they had something in mind and it didn't turn out to be the color, and when you are specialized in providing material and you can build processes, it's literally repeatable versus like
mm-hmm.
custom. Isn't that right?
100%. And that's, yeah, the custom stuff's just so hard. And then like when you tell people like you can have every option under the sun, it's just overwhelming. And the time and the back and forth, and then
Yeah.
to the expectations, like we would have design companies, and then also you're dealing through a lot of third parties. So it's like the telephone game, and then the designers get their opinions involved, and and then sometimes you're
Mhm.
not dealing with the end user directly, so you really don't know what their intent is, or what their expectations are.
Yeah.
um so yeah, I hated the walkthroughs, the reviews. It, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
reminds you of
Yeah.
like school projects of like,
Yeah.
that kid that wanted to critique every, that got pleasure in just being super harsh on everybody. But it
Yeah.
wasn't like if they didn't pick it apart. And sometimes, like, there's designers that were really cool, and they would try to, like, not put stuff in client's head and just be like, oh, this is awesome, this is very unique, like, and like, kind of have your back. But then there were some designers that was like, if they didn't throw you under the bus, they didn't feel like they're doing like their job. And like, that stuff just sucks. So like,
For
they'd point
sure.
stuff out that wasn't even really an issue until like they put it in the client's head.
For
but
sure. For sure. Hey,
But yeah, no, expectations on just selling wood is so much easier, because it's like, you give photos, you give, like you said, you put processes in place, and it's like
yeah.
they're just buying that. And then, yeah, expectation management's just way simpler, way more efficient.
Yeah. Yeah. So and tell us about the process of starting up this lumber store retail, and what does it look like on the back end?
Um, so we're still going through that process right now.
Uh-huh.
About a little over a year ago, we opened up a retail spot in a town in the Bay Area called Milpitas. It's right out of San Jose.
Yeah.
And we took it on a month-to-month lease, and we knew that the building potentially was going to sell. We talked to a lot of the tenants in that building, and they're like, oh, they've been telling us that for like 10 years now. That part
Yeah.
of the city, they wanted to redevelop to put condos in anyways.
Yeah.
But it was like, lease wise, it was a really good deal. It was a nice flex space, so it kind of checked all the boxes of like what we were looking for aesthetically. And it
Yeah.
was in the last phase of some industrial buildings that was surrounded by like higher end condominiums. So it was like, oh, well, there's still, we could potentially get foot traffic from these neighborhoods. And then like, there's a bit nice highway right there. So
Yeah.
even though we like rolled the dice on the month to month, we're like, and plus the month to month was starting a new like venture like that, especially in the Bay Area, where even though we found like a reasonable spot, it's still relatively expensive to most of the country.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, that worked pretty well, and especially just getting our foot in the Bay Area market and trying to get into more of the retail lane. I didn't really know anything about social media marketing or e-commerce, or when we were in San Diego, I tried some of that, but with the custom furniture, it was more of just like, you just kind of used your website and social media. You didn't really sell off of it. It was just trying to, like, it was more of like a
Awareness, like a
business
brochure.
card.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So it was a
Yeah.
much more different form. And I had friends, because I was 21 when I started the company. So I had friends from college that were like graphic designers and had backgrounds in marketing a little bit. So, and then I befriended like older, business people in San Diego that had backgrounds in like traditional marketing. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of self-taught and just like figuring it out. But getting into like the space in San Jose and just networking with more people, and also just doing more research and doing more homework and figuring it out. We started selling off of Instagram pretty efficiently. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Still need to figure out
Like
like the
posting the photos and the amount, that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
honestly, just using stories, like just throwing stuff up on the stories, like, hey, here's this slab, like $500, and people, like, every time I threw them up, people wanted to buy them.
That's
Um,
incredible.
yeah, and we just had a ton of people, like, just showing nice pieces of wood all the time. People are like, oh, I really like your material. Like, how can I purchase? How can I buy? And then, finding ShipStation. I know there's other good shipping platforms, but we use ShipStation. It's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
afford, super
And you
easy to
ship all over,
use.
right?
Yeah, yeah, we ship all over the U.S. Still need to figure out Canada a little bit. um, and there's a lot, like, as you scale up, getting started is easy, kind of just figuring out the shipping process and shipping everywhere. But like, there's a lot of like tax things you gotta, like, the do's and don'ts you gotta learn, like, as you scale up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. 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 That's super interesting, and it's funny too because like, do you think what makes the ability for people to buy like a buy and ship across? Is it just your unique, like what you have access to, and the fact that you like learn how to market wood online? Does that help?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of it's the wood. The wood sells itself. Claro walnut, the only spot it's found is in Northern California, and it's definitely developed like a reputation of being like an exotic of the commercial market or of the domestic market.
Mm-hmm.
We when we were doing the wholesale stuff, like a German company Danzer, they've been coming out to California since like the '60s, buying walnut burls
Hmm.
for and then slice them into veneers, and then a lot of American companies got into that too.
Yeah.
Mercedes Benz used to use it for a lot of their interiors.
Ah.
And then the gun stock industry, the Clara walnut, and then also the English walnut, which we grow in the orchards here. The same thing. It's like they've been pretty big markets, pretty big niche markets since the 60s, 70s,
Yeah.
um, at least. And then the tabletop fad, got pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
For the especially because we're close to the redwoods too, where the redwoods, in the redwood burls kind of had its popularity of dating back all the way to like the '60s, even earlier, and like different furniture decor and veneers. So there's that industry's dated back in Northern California for quite a while, and it's just type of species that only grow here, and because of our soil conditions and our growing climates and stuff, and like Bastogne walnut's another one that's it's a hybrid species. It's a cross between our local native Clara walnut and then Hein. So its scientific name is called Junglas Heinz, and it was named after a guy whose last name was Heinz. So it's also referred to as Heinz black walnut.
Yeah.
Um, but that's the one that's native here. And then a plant breeder, Luther Burbank, crossbred the local Heinz black walnut with the English, what common name we call it English walnut. It's Jungla regius.
Mm-hmm.
It's some people call it Old World walnut or Persian walnut, which would probably be more accurate description of it. It's just the Western Europeans were the first ones to grow them in orchards, so that's why I believe it got its name as like English walnut. But the
Yeah.
species is more native to like modern day Turkey, all the way to Iran, like parts of like far Western China to like Eastern Europe.
And you
But
got that, and you have access to that.
well, yeah. So the orchards here, we grow them in California. The walnut industry is pretty big, and so
Yeah.
they grow them. They grow them in orchards to produce, the walnuts you buy in a grocery store.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a byproduct from the ag industry.
That's incredible. That's really, really that. Yeah, California really is a special place, especially Northern California,
Yeah.
Southern Oregon as well. That's
Yep.
uh, that's really, really cool. Um, and how big is the operation? How many people on your team?
It's just so like our in-house team is just me, my dad, and then my younger brother.
Mm-hmm.
We do have partnerships with other local sawmills in the area. Wyland
Mm-hmm.
Walnuts, we do a lot with, and we're actually in the process of moving our operations over with them.
Yeah.
Um, and they were a big reason, like how we got started with the store in Milpitas. They supplied us with a lot of their inventory,
Gotcha.
and they do really good work too. Shout out Scott and Trevor.
Cool.
And then we're just trying to create a network of other sawmills up here that are similar setups, have been in the industry for a while, and just have just trying to connect them with people who are actually trying to buy the material. So
Yeah.
that kind of allows us to, as we scale up, to still source really good material, even though we're still milling and producing quite a bit, and that's one of the reasons why we're going to move over to the Wyland setup. They're over in Chico, which is only about 15 miles away.
Yeah.
And they're a father-son team. Scott was an arborist in the Chico area who got into milling, and then did everything from the gun stocks to pulling burls for the veneer industry, and then they eventually got into to doing more slabs and stuff too. But very similar background, very similar story. um, we we have a vision of scaling up where we can be like a bigger supplier, bigger have a bigger reach and a bigger footprint than
Hmm.
both of our operations currently. And they kind of are like niche, especially like the tabletop market. But if you there's a lot of resources up here that are underutilized. Like besides the walnut, we also get a lot of good cottonwood. We get a ton of different varieties of oak.
Yeah.
And we also, California has a lot of great softwoods too. There's a company called
Yeah.
Sierra Pacific that's like they're a huge monopoly on the softwood industry in the U.S. And
Yeah.
they don't really have a lot of competitors just because they're so big. One of the biggest. They are the biggest landowners in California, one of the biggest in the U.S. because all the
Yeah.
timberlands they own.
Yeah.
But there's also still a lot of wood. I mean, Cal Fire has a lot of grants out
Yeah.
there, and there's still a lot of wood that's being underutilized, especially in the hardwood
It's a
industry.
lot. It's a lot. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember the statistic that I heard from someplace that if you sort of, even if you take um, you know 5%, 2 to 5% a year, there's still billions and billions and billions of acres of land that's out there. You know what I mean? It's just like there's a lot of trees, um, you know. So
And
um,
when you like drive around here too, especially because California, like we get long cycles of drought and then we get long cycles of like rains and floods and storms. So like there's trees that need to come down all the time. And like when people aren't there to and even when in the wildfire stuff here, tree services, they don't make money holding on to especially when they're not like a high valuable, like perfect walnut veneer
yeah,
log. And
yeah,
there's not a ton of those anyways, but it's a lot of it's like a nice oak log that would have been a good like lumber log, but that
yeah,
tree company was in a hurry, so they would just rather chop it up into little rounds for the homeowner for firewood, versus where
yeah,
it's like that tree probably could produce 300 board feet of nice white oak lumber if it was properly
for sure.
handled. And
Yeah, yeah. Um, that's cool. I feel like I could talk to you forever about trees. It sounds like you're a tree nerd.
oh yeah,
So-
that's all I do.
all right. So this is a part of the podcast where I give you any marketing or business advice. Is there anything that you need help with, or any marketing or business advice that I could give you some advice on?
um I would I'd probably where I need the greatest, help, and probably like a lot of other small businesses, or in advice, would be kind of with like e-commerce and how to navigate like getting people to find like I don't know. It's such a multifaceted question because it's like there's the part of like there's just so much to e-commerce, and
Yeah,
I don't think until you really start to like dive, especially if you don't have a background in it, it's just as a small business owner it feels so overwhelming at times. But
for sure.
there's like the trying to get traffic to it, and then there's also the once you like are selling a product, it's like how to make sure you're collecting the right taxes and fees. Like for
Yeah,
what we do too, like I know I haven't really found any like good plugins for like the shipping aspect of it. Like Shopify does, and I think the other platforms have now like Square and stuff too for
yeah,
like live shipping rates. But
yeah.
like because we do such unique sizes and stuff, it's not like
It's not
setting.
standard. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I
What
guess,
platform are you on?
dude, right now, I mean, we've done trials on other ones and stuff,
Is this
Shopify, but
Squarespace or is
we have
this?
Square right now.
Yeah, no, no, I
Squarespace,
meant,
yes.
yeah, Squarespace. Yeah,
Yeah.
so you got a lot of stuff. I think the one thing that I would do on your website is um, I would add a blog for sure. And you're deep and rich in stories, and between the stuff I need, what I would, I think if you told more stories and you showed more processes, like I'm just looking at your Instagram. um I'm just gonna look at your reels. If I look at, let's see if there's anything else. um So interesting. The stuff with a lot of views tend to be the stuff with a lot of character, or stuff where there's people in it. I've just looked at pure numbers of
Mm-hmm.
the views on your reels. So that to me tells me that people are craving like FaceTime. So like one thing that I would do is probably show your face more in your stories and in your reels, or in your reels that end up on your page. That's one thing. The second thing that I would do is I would uh, I would add a blog to your website. Squarespace has that capability, and I would uh, answer questions that most people have and create blog posts out of them, because that's going to help your ranking to get more organic traffic. And then the third thing is that if you have a crazy piece, like big, wide, and I would look at like the pieces that generate a lot of traffic, the types of pieces, and I would make a Facebook ad and I would just boost it to all of the woodworkers in the United States. Like put like $50 or $30 on it, and then just boost it so that you could just get more and more traffic. And then the last thing that I would do is I would have a Cali Hardwoods email list, and this is a VIP list just for customers. And I would send them emails when you have fresh new things that like it's almost like a VIP list. They're
Mm-hmm.
the first ones that get it. And if you want to even build more of a community around that, I would say find us on Instagram and I will add you to our close friends list so that they can anticipate you make whenever you post something before you make it available to everybody. I would post it to your close friends, and it's just like a list of just buyers, and they can buy it first.
Yeah, I like that. I like that because we've been playing with the idea of like doing to update the website and just so we get in the habit of like managing because like I've just been doing everything off of Instagram just because it seems a lot quicker and you can just talk to people directly a lot faster.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah,
like that because that's kind of how that plays into how I've been using it. We were
yeah,
talking about doing updating the website and then doing like drops, kind of like similar idea where we do
yeah. Like
drops like
drop. Yeah,
every
yes,
2 weeks.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like
But we could.
drops.
I like that what you're saying because we can incorporate what you're talking about into that same idea where we let like an inside group know first when we're going to do the drop, so then they have first access to it.
Exactly. You just get
Yeah.
what ultimately like it's about like having you have your brand, Cali Hardwoods. You need to build a community around your brand, and you need to consistently sell them. Period. Like
Mhm.
it's you're not selling anything else other than what they actually need. So you just need to just give them the hot freshies. Oh yeah. So if you had videos of you saying of like you showing the new stuff and you're like the only way that you can get this is if you're on our list. You know what I mean? Like then
Yeah.
that creates urgency, and that creates a little bit of exclusivity, and it allows you to build more of a community around.
Yeah, I like
Cool.
that idea. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, tell everybody your website and your socials so that they can follow you.
Yeah, www.calihardwoods.com and everything's at Cali Hardwoods, CaliHardwoods.
Cool. Derick, thank you so much for your time, sharing your story. 3 generations of Sawyers. That's really impressive. And congrats for continuing your family legacy.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. And thanks for the marketing advice. I'm actually probably going to implement those ideas right away.
Just do it. That's what it's for. All right, man. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Cool. Have a good one. Bye.